In the world of Naruto, we've met multiple powerful characters, each of whom have used some of the most insane ninjutsu that never fail to blow your mind to some degree, but there's a class of jutsu that are just so insane they're deemed forbidden, and for as powerful as the Uchiha clan are on their own, even the mighty Uchiha possess a forbidden jutsu, which is why in today's newest dual installment of the Ninjutsu Handbook and the Forbidden Jutsu Handbook, here over on Naruto Explained, we're going to be breaking down the mechanics, the effects, and the inspiration for the Uchiha clan's forbidden jutsu. So, as you likely know, ninjutsu are deemed forbidden and banned from ever being taught and passed down as a rule agreed upon back during the early ages of the shinobi villages forming. But this is a ninja world, and so even with the ninja villages agreeing to never teach forbidden jutsu, each of them still proceeded to pass down the knowledge and mechanics of forbidden jutsu anyway. While we don't know what the penalties are for shinobi performing forbidden jutsu because it's never stated, we do know that each village has their own forbidden jutsu, which in Konoha are all jutsu that Hashirama Senju deemed to be forbidden jutsu, like the multi-shadow clone jutsu, and said techniques were sealed away into the Hokage office inside of Konoha, and the same for each of the other villages. You define them by the following criteria. Do they violate the laws of nature, like the way that Edo Tensei can bring back the dead? Do they put the user's life in jeopardy, like the twin snake's mutual death or the reverse lotus jutsu? Do they require more chakra than can be safely produced by the average shinobi, like say the multi-shadow clone jutsu? Do they possess wide-scale destructive damage and cause mass-scale casualties of life? Do they come at the expense of the user's life, like opening the 8th gate? Finally, do they inflict irreversible harm on the user's body, the way that the Uchiha clan's forbidden jutsu does? If the answer to any of those is yes, then congratulations, you've got a forbidden jutsu. With the Uchiha clan, Izanagi and Izanami are deemed forbidden jutsu because it comes at the expense of the prized Kekkei Genkai of the Uchiha clan, the Sharingan, which makes a lot of sense. While it's hard to believe, since just about every Uchiha we've seen in the series has been shown using the Sharingan at least once, as we get told early on in Naruto's manga and in the Naruto databooks, not every Uchiha who possesses the Sharingan Kekkei Genkai has the capacity to unlock the Sharingan, let alone the Mangekyo Sharingan, which is why it is frowned upon to use the Uchiha clan's forbidden jutsu, and both jutsu are rooted in the Sage's Six Paths creation of all things jutsu. You're basically weakening your clan by doing so, which is why if you're going to use the jutsu, because both require prep work to use them, they are only allowed to be used under the most dire circumstances. And one of these is really poetic when you look at the reason why it was created. So out of the two forbidden jutsu, Izanagi requires the less prep work, but there is still prep work that needs to be done, which makes sense given that this is a jutsu that allows the user to cheat death for as long as the jutsu is active. The user must first weave the hand signs of the rabbit, the boar, and the ram in order to perform the jutsu. As we see with Madara, the user does have the option to perform the jutsu beforehand and pre-program Izanagi to go off under a certain set of circumstances at a set time, like we saw when Madara used it to revive himself in the event that he was defeated by Hashirama Senju. Also, he could fake his death and leave behind a shadow clone in his place several days later. Regardless, the hand seals are still required to perform the jutsu beforehand. As the 4th databook tells us, this is a dojutsu technique that connects illusion and reality. During battles where defeat is not an option, this eye made a name for itself with the Uchiha clan by making the rabbit, the boar, and the ram hand seals when the Sharingan is turned on. It's at that moment the jutsu erases any harmful reality inflicted on the user for the brief moments that the jutsu is active, and it rewrites reality to a more favorable one for the Uchiha, which, to restate that first part, the Sharingan has to be on before the hand seals are casted. Otherwise, you cannot use the jutsu. The duration for the jutsu is directly linked to the user's capacity for power according to the 4th databook. So not every Uchiha has the same length of time that the jutsu can be used to stay in effect, which gives the user the ability to temporarily be invincible in a fight, but once the jutsu eventually wears off, it comes at the expense of the user's Sharingan eye. To further add on to this, Uchiha can only maintain it for a few seconds at best because they only possess one half of the Sage's Six Paths chakra. When you combine the Yang chakra of the descendants of Ashura, you can bump that time limit up by 1 minute, which in a battle is an utter eternity. Hence why Danzo gave Sasuke such a problem. The way that this jutsu stands out from all other normal genjutsu is that normal genjutsu will directly target the senses of your enemy, but with Izanagi, you are applying the genjutsu to yourself, and you yourself are in control of what is deemed to be be real or illusion, which is how you can rewrite reality by making fatal wounds regardless as to how severe they are, as long as the jutsu is active. There are differences in how the jutsu can be used depending on which continuity of the story you're referring to. So for instance, in the manga, you can only apply it to yourself, but in anime filler scenes, it can be directly applied to the people that are within the scope of the area of the genjutsu itself. While I personally don't count it, since that directly goes against the manga and the data book, it nevertheless is something that did happen in the series, so it does need to be mentioned for the purposes of this video. Izanagi, by being a branch off of Hagoromo's creation of all things jutsu, which turns imagination into reality, is naturally busted, and it is one of the most powerful yin released jutsu in the series itself because it is making shape out of something that previously didn't exist except for being a thought in the user's mind. However, for non-Uchiha who use this jutsu, so people like Danzo, there comes an even greater risk using it, which is that the jutsu takes an enormous amount of chakra to perform each time they use it. Izanami, on the other hand, is a more broken jutsu between the two, and since it is more broken, it rightfully requires more setup to use, enough so that when the chapters first came out when Itachi used it, a good chunk of the fandom back in 2011, 2012 years, they were absolutely confused on how the jutsu itself worked. So if you're someone who's still confused, I'm going to break Izanami down in a very easy way to understand before going into the inspiration behind each jutsu, which is super poetic, and that's information that was never explained to you in the anime, so I'm willing to bet a lot of you guys will be unaware of it. So Izanami is obviously a genjutsu, and while it doesn't require any hand seals to use, it does require prep time. It's different in that it targets your enemy through physical sensations that they share with you, and this is all factored into the genjutsu the user is constructing with the intended goal of altering destiny itself. The first step requires the user to select a moment in recent time after their Sharingan has been cut on and the jutsu is in the process of being used. So the user records the moment with their Sharingan Eye of Insight down to all the minute details, from the way that the water is dripping off the walls, the way that the hair is blowing on someone's head, and all the physical sensations that both parties are experiencing. Then they replicate all those details, and Izanami overlaps and connects everything recorded for the two parties as well as the flow of time in order to manifest the infinite loop that you see the target stuck inside of. At this point, the level of mental torment is at the discretion of the jutsu caster. They can record as many sensations as they want while they have the jutsu active. So the initial recording, it will always be point A. The next set of actions, they will be point B. And it will just continue over and over to say 100 different actions until the user literally decides to stop recording sensations. The reason why the user has it in the best interest to record as many actions and sensations as possible is because they have a chance to create a more complex loop to trap their target in, which the more detailed, the more mind-jarring of a mental torture the jutsu inflicts on a target that is stuck inside the loop that replays inside their mind while their body is physically stuck in its tracks, unable to move. Each time there is a loop, all the damage and effects, they are just replayed over and over again. So imagine if, say, someone like Itachi were to record the moment before he uses Tsukiyomi, which that would be point A, Tsukiyomi being used would be point B, and then point C would be the moment that you collapse on the ground after Itachi releases Tsukiyomi. In theory, he could just keep trapping you inside of that 72-hour loop, a Tsukiyomi, where you relive the before, the during, and after over and over again if you want to be a monster. Even if the target realizes that they are inside of a genjutsu, they can't break it like a normal genjutsu to try and disrupt it by shaking up their chakra. The jutsu does not break because it adapts to the target and it forces them to relive the loop over and over until they finally acknowledge the results of their actions and accept their fate and, most importantly, their shortcomings. This jutsu was never intended to be used on an enemy, but instead its purpose was to be something much closer to what the Sage's Six Paths wanted chakra to be used for back when he was preaching the art of ninshu, which was using chakra to connect people. So this jutsu was meant to stop clan members from killing each other. It was meant to reprimand clan members and force them to see the error of their ways and force them to eventually break out of the genjutsu by accepting their shortcomings. In short, it was a jutsu made by a clan with a strong capacity for feeling the feeling of love that was intended to save the very people that they love from themselves. Now, the inspiration for both of these jutsu, like a lot of what you see in Naruto, it can all be traced back to Asian cultural stuff and religions like, say, Buddhism, or in this case, Japanese Shinto. So in Japanese Shinto, you had the goddess Izanami, Izanami, who had a husband named Izanagi, who both of them created the islands and the various Shinto gods, which is just like Hagoromo's creation of all things jutsu that made life out of nothing. Izanagi, in one story, goes down into the Japanese underworld to revive his wife Izanami after she died giving birth to the Japanese fire god Kagusuchi, the god who ironically inspires Sasuke's second Mangekyo Sharingan power. Part of the condition is that Izanagi is not supposed to look back at Izanami before they escape the underworld, and just as they reach the exit, he looks back and she decays right in front of him. This led to Izanagi sealing away the underworld entrance, and so this enraged Izanami, who curses her husband by killing 1,000 people each day, which then makes Izanagi say he's going to create 1,500 people each day that are going to be reborn. In this version of the story, what you see is that there's an escalation between the two lovers. The two of them, they are family. Family is fighting. One results in death and one results in life, meant to offset the death and add more life than what was originally lost. Just as the Uchiha clan once fought each other, abused Izanagi, and they were reprimanded by the usage of Izanami. But like with a lot of stories Kishimoto takes inspiration from, he flips the roles in reverse. Whereas Izanami was the one killing and associated with death in the Shinto story, that role, it has now been placed on Izanagi, which is used to cheat death and abusing the laws of nature. And when you look at Izanami in the Naruto world, it is a jutsu that is correcting all the wrong. Whereas in the Shinto story, it was originally Izanagi's role. Well, that's going to be it for this installment of the Ninjutsu Handbook and the Forbidden Jutsu Handbook. There'll be more videos like this coming in the future, so click here on the left to check out those two playlists, or click here on the right for a video for my Anime Explained channel.